Interesting when you hear Japan mention BRICS countries. Jim Willey has talked about the fact that maybe Japan would join the BRICS when it's every country for themselves at a certain point. I also think it's notable to mention that they had talked about developing the BRICS metals exchange, which is something that is purely logical to me. I think they will. I think after the Western exchanges are exposed for what they are, a system that allows massive rehypothecation, massive naked shorting by Western bullion banks who control the price and have for a long time. And now these countries are using that leverage, using that stupidity against us by standing for delivery slowly, and methodically, not too fast to, the game will end. So they do it enough to where they are literally bleeding the coffers dry, and that will continue. And then when these exchanges, or the Western exchanges, the COMEX and the LBMA, are viewed as fugazi, I guess you could say, you will see the rise of the Dubai exchange, the Moscow exchange, the Shanghai exchange, and perhaps even a BRICS exchange. These countries are shedding their desire to hold dollars, but more importantly, treasuries. And that was part of the petro deal. That's what's financed our lifestyle. That's what finances our debt spending, is the purchase of these treasuries, which are no longer really of any appetite for these countries. Instead, they're buying commodities like gold, like base metals, like silver, like anything that is tangible. Like I often point to China buying the London Metals Exchange. That's not by coincidence. They want commodities, they want tangibles, and it's a better place to put it than our treasuries, which have all of these issues. So another thing that we continue to see is rhetoric about the relationship between China and India on the mend, that the border issue is supposedly behind them. I think it's very important for them to show the world that they have stability. And at the same time, we now see joint naval exercises on tap for Iran and Saudi Arabia. This is Sunni and Shiite. They've hated each other. Remember, China brokered a peace deal last year between the two. After the U.S. has never been able to do that, China comes in and does that. So again, what we are seeing, I think, is a concentrated effort to continue to do more of the same, accumulate commodities, build infrastructure, their BRICS pay, their BRICS clear, their BRICS bridge. All of this stuff, I think, will only be crystallized by what the BIS did. And what the BIS did is one of the worst things I've ever seen. And then you get a State Department spokesman who says any challenging of an alternative system, rather, any attempt to bring in an alternative system that threatens the dollar's reserve role or the SWIFT system is a threat to global democracy. I mean, I think that's pretty rich. That's a lot of hubris. And I think the BRICS countries, after seeing what the BIS did, the Bank of International Settlements, which is a Western institution, really very underhanded, I think it will only crystallize their resolve. The presidency moves to Brazil this year, and they've talked about Brazil's role will be to integrate the countries that have expressed interest, about 59 of them. So we'll see. I think it's important to understand that this is something that is moving. And maybe it will move faster as a result of this. I don't know. But here again, bringing Trump in with, again, threatening countries with sanctions if they abandon the dollar, imposing tariffs. These are all things that will just incentivize and crystallize the resolve these countries have. And looking at trusting the Western institutions like the BIS, once you break that kind of trust, who knows where things go. But I think a lot of people have a hard time dealing with the fact that this is monotonous, that this takes a long time, that it's not instantly gratifying. But I think it is moving in that direction, and you can see it if you look closely. They're trying to show the world they have their act together, that they're favoring peace and unity over aggression and coercion, that they favor commodities over treasuries and local currencies and trading over US dollars. This is all a trend in motion and hasn't slowed down just because President Trump, fortunately, will take office in January. The Bank of Russia came out and said they are going to start accumulating silver every day for the next month, adding it to their strategic stockpile. That was something that was somewhat shocking. We've never heard that from a government, really, to my knowledge, before. You have India that is who has bought, I don't know, between 8 and 900 million ounces of silver over the last 3 years. They're buying it at levels that far exceed any central bank purchasing. You have China, as I mentioned in an interview I did with Sean Kuhn from Dolly Varden, who confirmed they're flying all around Latin America, buying doré and concentrate from the miners directly. They're the second largest producer of silver in the world. And David Morgan said, well, they'll actually tell you they're the first largest. Who knows? But the point of it is that you are seeing governments accumulate silver and it being bled dry from the exchanges across the globe. To me, it represents the maybe the best value I've ever seen, ever, in any commodity. But in the end, you're right. In the end, gold is the only other tier one reserve asset. I wouldn't count gold out. But when we talk about value, it's pretty darn hard to ignore the value that is found in silver. When the dust settles, I think the place to be is gold, and you play that silver to gold ratio. To me, it's the trade of a generation. When someone says to you, you can double your position, it usually comes with great risk. I look at the silver play as one of the greatest asymmetrical risk reward trades I've ever seen, meaning low downside, high upside. Trump was, Musk was on with Joe Rogan recently and said that you could create, I think it was 100-mile by 100-mile grid of solar panels. You could power the entire United States. If you pull it up, just Google it, it'll pop right up. It's about a 20-second clip. And with a guy like him in there with that kind of pull, who knows what the future is for silver. I do know that when 8 commercial banks hold the largest short position of any commodity traded on COMEX, as Ed Steer showed on an interview with your father not too long ago, you ask yourself, why the hell would they do that? Why would 8 banks be shorting a commodity like that naked, meaning they don't have the silver to back it up? For what reason would they risk that? And why is there between 4 and 6 billion ounces short on the LBMA? I think these kinds of manipulations that the West has been involved with for a very long time is being exploited by these countries slowly. So I think it's the trade of a generation. And I think the silver to gold swap is as good of a speculation as I've ever seen in my career. With, the worst case, you're stuck with silver, who cares? But the likelihood of seeing a 40-ish to 1 ratio where its price is averaged for almost 200 years, that's just a double is reaching average. And that would still be 6 times higher than it's coming out of the ground at 7 to 1 and decreasing. And another 260 million ounce shortfall this year in silver, according to the supply demand numbers out of the Silver Institute, who again omit military usage of silver. This is why the banks are short. This is why the Western banks are shorting, because the military industrial complex, which is very powerful and very influential, needs silver to make high-tech weapons, and they're all Western based. And this is what these other countries understand. They get it. And I often say it's the comment made by the gentleman who is running, I guess you could say, the progression of the BRICS grain exchange, where he says we produce and consume more grain than the West does, but we can't control the price. It's controlled on COMEX. With the development of this grain exchange, that will change. They understand what we're doing in precious metals as well and using it against us. So to me, gold is the ultimate place to be in the end. If I had only one trade to make, period, it would probably be in gold, because it is the only other tier one asset in the world. And I think when you're making decisions like this, maybe profit isn't your primary concern, although I think gold will go higher than people think possible, because it will go much higher to be pegged to a new system, whether it be one that Trump issues. And I think that's how the West could derail a lot of the demand for the BRICS currency, is to be the first one to do it. There's a lot of talk of it. You have the Senator Loomis from Wyoming, who talks about revaluing the gold. You have Judy Shelton, who talks about adding gold into the system to gain trust. Who knows? But in terms of value, in terms of upside potential, in terms of asymmetrical risk reward, I have never seen anything like silver. And look, the market, as everyone knows, can stay irrational longer than people can stay solvent, or longer than people's patience will allow them to stay rational. I just still think it's hard to ignore the value that has been created through suppression on COMEX and the LBMA, and that seems to me to be challenged. It's being challenged right now, and I think it's never been challenged. These countries were not in a position to do so. They are now, and they're coordinated as well. They're coordinated and very wealthy, and they understand what we're doing, and they understand that this is a better thing to hold. As Zoltan Pozsar said, Bretton Woods 3, it's not about debt instruments like U.S. Treasuries and inflating U.S. dollars. It's about commodities, and that's the progression we're seeing. So to me, yeah, silver is the value of a generation. In the end, I would switch a large portion of that to gold if we saw a 40-ish to 1 or better, 42, 43 to 1 or lower silver to gold ratio. It's a double. So yeah, I think that's definitely in play as well. And to me, it's almost a 2-foot putt, not quite a gimme, but it's as probable gets when it's coming out of the ground at 7 to 1. And we continue to see massive deficits, which are becoming structural. Almost $1.5 billion ounce shortfall over the past 5-6 years. You can't make that up. And the demand for silver is increasing, not decreasing. So yeah, silver now, gold later. That is the playbook. And I'll stick to that. I think it's the opportunity of a generation.
The global financial system is undergoing a massive shift as BRICS nations challenge Western dominance. Countries like China, India, and Russia are moving away from treasuries and dollars, focusing instead on commodities like gold and silver. With silver emerging as a generational opportunity and gold as the ultimate safe haven, this could redefine global finance. Now you know how silver and gold are shaping the future of global finance. But the next piece of the puzzle is critical. Click on this video to uncover what's coming next. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more insights that keep you ahead of the curve. See you there.